You're not going to bring out the end of the world now, are you? Are you? Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about Father's Day, written by Paul Cornell, who also wrote Love and War previously in canon, and is directed by Joel Ahert, who also directed Dalek. And if you remember in my video, in the Dalek video, he is easily a contender for Best Director of the series. Now, Russell T Davies was an absolute genius when it came to that story, Dalek. He paired Rob Sherman with one of the best directors the series had had, easily the strongest director of season 1. And again, he's made such a great creative decision, as now he's put Paul Cornell, another well-experienced writer, wrote Love and War, created the character of Bernie Summerfield, would go on in novels to write some of the most popular fiction in Doctor Who, including, not included like Love and War, but also all the other ones he's done. Human Nature, that's another one, which we also again will be tackling. But here we are. It's his first televised story with Joel Ahern directing it. And this also tackles a particular subject which has never been done before. We've had historical stories, we've had pseudo-historical stories, but we've never had a story with the history that we're tackling, the past that we are investigating, the story, the narrative the story is tackling is so personal to our main character. It's absolutely, it's just, I know I'm probably giving away, like, because usually, you build up to, like, what you think about a story at the end of your vlog, but I just love Father's Day. It's a fantastic piece of television, and just like Dalek, it stands up there as one of the best Doctor Who stories of the series. The fact that Christopher Eccleston, who not only this is his first series but his only series, had 2 singular episodes which were some of the strongest the show has ever have to offer, showed that yes, Doctor Who is not only here, but it's back, it's brilliant, and it's here to stay. And it's mainly, the story just had a great premise to work up on, but Paul Cornell's writing really showed off why not only is this premise such a great premise to tackle, but also as well why Paul Cornell is just such a fantastic character. He loves playing around with an almost fairy tale like aesthetic, like with Love and War, with lots of like talking about like demigods and the planet named in heaven. This story also too has a semi fairy tale element, something which I felt got a bit too heavy-handed during the Stephen Moffat era, but now looking back as a more of a mature adult, it's something that's really in part of a majority of stories, especially Paul Cornell. But this story it does feel like the fairy tale element is earned in this story, because it's tackling something from a character's childhood. It's tackling a specific, not even a memory, it's what she's grown up hearing the stories of. As we start off the story with actually Rose as a little girl being told by her mother the story of her father, Peter Tyler. This magnificent man who came up with all of these brilliant ideas, like a special kind of soda drink, or these solar panels, or a fridge that like hangs outside the ceiling, the windowsill, or some crazy ideas like that. And Rose then comes up to the Doctor, now in present time, or at least present time in terms of us as a viewer, saying that, is it okay if she goes back in time to witness her father's death? As it's described to her by her mother, he died all alone, there was no one there. He died alone without anybody there to comfort him or to be there with him in his final moments. And Rose wants to be the final moment. And along with the fairy tale element is also the start of it. I love the Doctor and Rose dynamic here, as the Doctor basically acts like a genie. He's like, I could do anything, I'm just more concerned about you. Because, you know, this is kind of a messed up thing to do, Doctor. Really, I think taking away like any sort of perception of this story, you do kind of feel like, hold on, Doctor should know that taking Rose to see the death of her father is a very bad idea. You know, that's pretty messed up, but you understand also the Doctor's a Time Lord. He understands that human emotions aren't, or at least we understand as a viewing audience, that emotions like that, maybe Time Lords can handle this situation, knowing about time travel and the laws of time and stuff. What I really like is just this story has a lot slower pacing than your usual story. In terms of plot, there's not much really to do with the plot, and the plot is moving on a slower pace than usual. But that is perfect for this narrative. In fact, like the first 10 minutes is leading up to that moment. They actually, before they even witness the car crash, they go to Rose's parents' wedding, where we get Jackie Tyler and Pete Tyler, and there's this really funny bit where Pete doesn't know can't pronounce Jackie's middle names, and Rose is just like kind of like shocked. It's like, this is not what she expected, and the Doctor's just smiling to himself. He's just absolutely loving every moment of it. So they travel a little bit further in time to a wedding of Jackie and Pete's friend. The day it happened, the day Peter Tyler died. And again, we don't get there straight away. We get to feel the emotions, we get to feel the impact this has on our character as Rose and the Doctor witness it. They stand there ready. Rose narrates to us what's happening. It's like, I've heard this story 100 times. It's strange, though I imagine it's like stormy weather and it's gloomy, but it's just an average day. Which also reminds me, in my previous video leading up to this, I stated the story was set in 1989. That was wrong. The story is actually set in 1987. I was 2 years off. I do apologise for that. But anyway, and Rose and the Doctor just there watching these events unfold. And when it actually comes time to crash, Rose actually turns away. She can't look. And they quickly run off. And there's a bit when they're just sitting down in a corner as they hear an ambulance truck arrive. And Rose is like, it's too late now, he's dead. And I love the fact, I just absolutely love the fact that we had a first attempt. Any other writer in this particular scene would have had what we're going to get next, which is the build up to the story, happen like right away. As soon as Rose is like, right, I want to go back in time to witness my thing, then it leads up to that moment, which we'll talk into. But Paul Cornell is such a smart writer. He's so clever as we get to witness these little teases of moments, these little flavours of these characters before the events turn, which makes us emotionally, even though it's very short, it's still emotionally gripping for us as a viewing audience, because we do get the feeling of of loss in this adventure. And so Rose is like, I can't let him die on his own. Despite, that was very difficult, but I have to try again. Can we try again? And the doctor reluctantly agrees, stating it's like, right, we can only be here twice. Wait until the younger versions of us leave, and then we'll go, and you can see to him and talk to him. But we can't be here again. We can't come here for the third time. And then Peter gets out of the car again. The car's about is turning the road, and suddenly Rose is like, I can't let this happen. And she runs, she bumps past the two previous selves, and she saves her father. She saves Pete Tyler's life, changing the course of history as we know it. And that is what our story is mainly about. It's about the ramifications of altering the timeline as now Peter, who was once dead, is now alive in a timeline in which he wasn't supposed to, in a timeline which is not supposed to exist. And Peter Tyler to take them to his flat to say thank you. And the scene in which they're in Rose's apartment back before, the directing, the editing is just so goddamn powerful. And Christopher Eccleston and Billy Piper, they are at their A game. In my opinion, this is their best performances in the entire series for both of them. Easy, hands down, just phenomenal. But in terms of directing and editing, this is what I mean. Rewatch that scene again. You feel the desolation between the Doctor and Rose, that the Doctor is really angry with her. He's really, you can feel the separation between our two characters. Now, why is that? Why does this story is so powerful at bringing about its emotional characters? Obviously, performance helps with the two fantastic actors in their specific roles. It also helps that the setting really leads into this dilemma, as the Doctor is the experienced time traveller who knows that Pete Tyler shouldn't be alive, that the whole course of human history can unravel at any moment. But the strength of this scene, the one that makes this, in my opinion, such a powerful scene, is the directing. When you watch that scene, notice how Rose and the Doctor are not seen in the same frame. The Doctor is at the doorway, and Rose is in the room. And whenever time it cuts to the Doctor, the camera is completely still. The Doctor hardly moves. He's just looking around, staring. In fact, we don't actually see his eye movement. We cut to the Doctor's completely still reaction, as if like he's so angry, he's so annoyed, he cannot even comprehend anything. He can't move. He is so enraged, and his facial expression. Then we cut to Rose, and the camera follows her around as she's moving around. She gets up, she goes down, she looks at the bottle on the floor. She's constantly energetic in a way. And the camera follows her around, and every time it follows her around and cuts back, we see the Doctor looking in her direction, but he still doesn't move. We never even see his eye movement. It constantly cuts, and it just shows the moment that these characters, because these characters so far, they've had their ups and downs, but mainly ups. The stories have been treated them very fairly in terms of their relationship with one another. This is the first time where there has been a real gap in their relationship. And then only really towards the end, when the Doctor starts talking and starts speaking down towards her, and comes up with this idea that do they actually get seen in the same frame with each other. It's just, Joel Ahern is such a fantastic director. It's just astonishing how well he does what he does. It's just amazing. But anyway, back to the story itself, because the Doctor states, the first thing the Doctor states, he completely ignores Rose and all of her whims and crimps about Pete Tyler, and the Doctor's just like, he talks about the final moments of the episode Rose, where it's like, I told you I had a space machine, and then you said no. Then I said time machine. And basically, it's implying that, from his point of view anyway, he kind of expects that this was some sort of plan. One of my favourite lines, he goes, it's never about showing you the universe, innit? It's about the universe doing a favour for you, because life is so unfair, you know. And the scene just works so well. It's one of my favourite performed scenes. It's well directed. It's so... Come on! How can you not love this scene? And they get so angry, they get so annoyed with each other that the Doctor demands the TARDIS key back and is like, right, okay, I'm going now, until you come crying back and apologising. And so the Doctor leaves as Rose basically pretends that she is going to the wedding that Peter and Jackie are going to attend to, and so they start heading off in the car, where some weird experiences started happening. The first thing we see are the eyesight of the creatures that are now inhabiting Earth, as they're constantly eating away and vanishing people from this timeline. Speaking of those things, there's actually something I need to discuss, because when this story was aired, there was actually a criticism with the filters of the camera, with the exception of obviously the scenes in which you see the creatures' POV scenes. The majority of scenes in the story, especially apart from really the end, were given a whitewash filter throughout the entire story to give it this really old, creepy feeling to it. But the audience criticised this filter, feeling like it made the story look really washed out and really ugly looking. This version is actually retained for the vanilla release, in which it only has a handful of episodes. So I got to watch the original filtered episode. However, if you get I believe it's the season 1 box set and the Blu-rays, they've actually edited out these whitewashed effects. I can see where the criticism comes from, but I do personally like it. Mainly, I will admit, it's mainly a bias, because I mainly like it because that's how I remember the story. But I will admit, seeing clips on YouTube of the unfiltered version, it does look a lot better, hands down. I just personally prefer the version that I own, because it's the way I remember watching it. But anyway, so these creatures come into this universe. They are called the Reapers. However, they're not actually named in the story. And they are described as this parasite that eat from the wound of time until everything inside the wound is eaten away until nothing is left. And there's been some criticisms again with these creatures. Mainly it's like, hold on, if these creatures appear every time time is injured or wounded, then why haven't we ever seen them before and since? Well, in terms of before, there's actually an explanation in the story. As the Doctor states, there used to be people that fixed these events. Time Lords, my own people, used to fix events like this whenever these creatures appeared. So that explains why they haven't appeared prior to this story. As for after, one example could be that these creatures don't appear every time time is injured, only specific moments in time that are injured. They don't just appear only when they are at a certain location in time and space, in a sense. Like an infection, if it's not near anything in another time zone which is also infected, then it can't infect them, you know. That's how I imagined it, but yeah, it is a kind of strange how, despite these creatures supposed to appear when time is fractured, in a show where time gets fractured almost on a daily basis, how they've only appeared once is very, very bizarre. Although I do believe they actually appeared in that third Doctor comic book that I once talked about. I can't remember. I'm sure they had a cameo appearance in that adventure. I could be wrong. Another thing then is the Doctor, who heads back into the TARDIS. When he opens up, something strange is when he opens the doors. It's smaller on the inside. It's been reduced to a regular police box. This was such a strange scene as a Doctor Who fan, to see the prop in the inside as the actual prop and not the interior of the TARDIS is such a weird image, but it's such an iconic one. It puts the danger level up. It's like, right, the Doctor, Rose, they just cannot escape. They cannot leave this timeline anymore. They just have to wait out until all of time and space, these Reapers have eaten everything in time. And that really hires the stakes, as well as Rose. She goes to meet Jackie, and she kind of learns that her parents didn't have the loving relationship that she thought. They shout at each other. They literally are screaming their heads off in the middle of the road as they hate each other. In fact, Jackie even mentions a event that happened in the past about some duffel coats, in which it appears either Jackie's getting the wrong idea, or Pete Tyler was having an affair. He was sleeping around, and that puts a completely different light on their relationship. In fact, when Jackie meets the older Rose, because now she has the baby Rose, which is such an adorable scene. She actually believes that Rose is actually one of Peter's mistresses, one of his girls that he's sleeping around with. And Peter's like, this is ridiculous. Why would I bring her to meet the missus? Just like, come on, give me a break. There are some scenes where they slow down and they talk to each other. Now, Pete Tyler is such a great character. A great example, a great comparison, which is actually in the story, is the comparison between him and Del Boy from the show Only Fools and Horses. He's a real Del Boy, which fits his character perfectly. And I know people like him. I know people who act like a Del Boy, and it really grounds his character down. I really love his personality, his traits, his little schemes that he comes off and his thing. Another thing as well, when it comes to the fracturing of time, is when it comes to radios, radio waves, time is also distorted so that things aren't listed out. When Rose and Peter in the car, first of all, they hear Never Gonna Give You Up. Never gonna give you up, never gonna take you down or desert you. This story rickrolls you before rickroll was even a thing. This story stands the test of time because of that. But something happens with the radio. It catches a different frequency and it picks up a song which actually isn't released yet. And it confuses Pete Tyler and Rose. It's like, hold on, this song is not even out yet. Rose tries to communicate through the phone with the Doctor and other characters we see are also on the phone, but I keep hearing the same voice. Come here, Watson, I need you. Come here, Watson, I need you. Come here, Watson, I need you. And it's like really old-fashioned, like a lot of crinkling in the sound, pops and cracks, really old-fashioned. So that's like another element of time going wrong. And so they get to the wedding and all hell breaks loose between Jackie and Pete. I really love the scene where it's like Rose is just staring at them. She looks completely out of her mind in that shot. Again, the acting and the directing is just spot on in this story. Actually, let's talk about Rose, because a lot of people might be a bit annoyed by the fact that I'm not a huge Rose fan. I find the majority of stories she's a very weak companion. We've had a handful of stories where I felt like she wasn't very strong, especially in her debut story, Rose. This is one of the few exceptions to that rule, in which her character, her personality, is reflected extraordinarily well. And I think it's due to the fact that this dynamic, this story, that she technically triggered. If it wasn't for her, this story would never have happened. It's such a relatable experience. We all, if we had a time traveler, would at least bring up the concept of why not go back in time and save everybody who once died. This showing because Reapers will come along and destroy all of space and time. And I love the bit where it seems like everything is going well. Jackie and Peter are talking. They seem to be getting along now. They're cheering up. Rose smiles to herself. She hears the Doctor calling her name, and she smugly smiles to herself as if to go, look, I told you you'd be coming back begging for me. She turns around smiling, and she sees the Doctor run, and then he says, get to the church, and that smile drops, and she looks up, and we get our first fully realization of the Reaper, this giant half-bat sort of squid thing. I can't really describe it. They got them on the covers, but they're these kind of look at them. The effect, it's kind of split in two ways. The actual effect itself, in terms of just purely like a digital thing, doesn't really hold up well. You can tell it's kind of old. It's old-fashioned. You know, it was made on a TV budget. You know, the mixture between the actual footage and the CGI footage is something to blend with it. However, in terms of an actual effect, they kind of went all out. The story does, the directing and the effect does a great job at subtly letting us know that these creatures are real. For example, when one of them attacks the father of the bride, one of them scratches the floor, leaving this this mark in the grass. Another one tries to grab onto the church and pushes its claws down like that, and there's like rubble coming off of the church, just showing like it's such the inverse. What's the word I'm looking for? Out in the experience of the story, it just looks so good, and it lets you forget that this is a story and these are CGI creatures. The effect is so well handled. And so all our characters are now set in a church, and basically for the rest of the story, halfway through the story, that's the setting. This technically, I don't know if it counts, I haven't heard people consider this story such. In my head, I tell you what, I can consider this story a bus story. For those of you who don't know, bus story is a Doctor Who status quo, which means base under siege, in which a handful of characters are stuck in a small location with monsters basically surrounding them in every angle as our main characters trying to survive and trying to find a way out. They were very popular during the second Doctor era, and here is just a fantastic element of that dynamic, because what makes bus stories so work is that we get to experience the story with our characters, even though that really we're only really well versed in two of them. It allows us to be familiar with a handful of characters for a long time, as Peter hears dialogue between the Doctor and Rose, and he kind of puts together that what's happening. I especially love that. He kind of figures out that Rose is his daughter from the future. I especially love the scenes in which Rose is trying to describe him, not wanting to tell him that he's dead in the future. There's a great moment where it's like, you never missed a bedtime story, you were always there. You never missed a school meeting, you were always there when I was sad and upset. And Peter knows that that's absolutely rubbish. He says, that's not me at all, is it? Paul Cornell, how do you write such great stories? The Doctor and Rose's relationship are fractured, but they still really care about each other. The Doctor gets moments where he shouts at Rose and shouts at everybody, really. One of my favourite moments is when he's shouting at Jackie, and Jackie is like, how do you know who I am? How do you know my name? Who are you? What may put you in charge? And the Doctor's like, right, I have no time to explain, but you're going to have to listen to me. Now, I've always wanted to say this. Jackie Tyler, do as you're told. And when Jackie is like, okay, go, when another character comes up to him, the Doctor's just like, I've always wanted to say that. I bloody love that moment. Christopher Eccleston is at top form, but it's not about him, it's about Rose, it's about Billy Piper's character and her dynamic. But the Doctor gets some really great moments in here. I especially love when he just looks at Rose and is just like, there's been a wound in time, and those things, he basically describes what the Reapers are, and he's just staring down at Rose as if I'm sorry. It's like he knows it's her fault, but he's also incredibly sorry by the fact that the whole universe is now on basically her soldiers. It was her fault that the universe is coming down, and he feels like, no, she's just a kid, she doesn't deserve all of this pressure. I just feel so sorry for her. You kind of see that just in Christopher Eccleston's look, but not to say that he's completely forgiven her. There's a great moment where Jackie Tyler asks the Doctor to look after the baby, which is the bit which I did at the start, where the Doctor's just like, just saying it's like, you wanted to end the world, wouldn't you? That is just a fantastic piece. That is so funny. This story, despite having a really morbid plot line, is just so funny as well. And that's what I think, and it balances out so perfectly because the humour really, really works. I think that's mainly because most of the humour is the Doctor interacting with characters and him, being experienced time travel and seeing all these adventures. Despite this being one of the more harder struggles that he has to do, he still gets some really light moments, and it's just spot on. Also another great moment from the Doctor is when the couple, the husband and the bride, asks the Doctor, can they help them? And then the Doctor basically asks them, how did it all happen? How did they first meet? It's like she needed a taxi and he helped her get a taxi home. And the Doctor's like, I've been to so many places, I've seen things you couldn't believe, but 2 a.m, a taxi home. I've never had a life like that. Yes, I'll save you. That sums up the Ninth Doctor. He will save anyone, not because, it's it's just because it's the right thing to do. Just because these innocent people who had no quest for adventure, they just want to have a normal life. And the Doctor will do his best to allow them to have a normal life. Now, about, say, 2/3 into the story, we get the TARDIS key heating up as the Doctor bursts with full of energy as he's realizes that this means that the TARDIS is still connected and he can fix time, he can heal time, and even states to Rose, it's like, don't worry, the thing that you wounded with time will still be fixed when I get the TARDIS working. And the Doctor's like, he comes to his plan, he's romantic, and you're like, right, we're coming up to the conclusion of the story. This is how this is going to resolve, and that Rose is going to survive in the story with her father coming back to life. Now that, I think, would have been a good story. I mean, yeah, it would have been like, okay, she brought her father back, but she's gone through all the emotions. She realizes this was a terrible idea. All of the consequences were put onto her, and the story does a great job at moralizing our characters. And that would have been just a fantastic moment, a fantastic plot. That would have been a great story. But Paul Cornell takes it one step further because he's such a fantastic writer. As when Peter basically describes to Jackie, it's like, right, this is Rose from the future. They're the same person. In a fantastic scene where all the actors and actresses in the story are just phenomenal. And Jackie gives the baby and gives it to Rose, which causes a paradox, which creates a Reaper inside the castle, inside the church. The Reaper, first thing it does is eat the Doctor. Then it tries chasing around people until it hits the materializing TARDIS and the TARDIS key, making it vanished, meaning that not only now is the Doctor dead, but the TARDIS, the thing that was supposed to heal time, to stop the Reapers, to cure time, that option is gone. There is no way out. Or is there? As throughout the story, we've seen this car basically following Peter Tyler as it goes around a corner. We see then the driver blocking his face, and then the car vanishes. And again, if this was a less experienced writer, the click would have almost certainly happened as soon as the Doctor died. But no, the story lets a little bit further into it. There's a nice little scene of of Rose and Peter describing it more, and basically it's like, right, it's like he's slowly working out. It's like, have I gone bald? Have I gone grey? And it's like, it's too much to take in for him. And he sees the car through the window and it clicks. He knows what's happened. He knows what he tries to do as he basically gets his suit ready, what he came in with. He picks up, he basically is like, Jackie, I've got to do this, I've got to die. It's what is wounded time. Rose, it's thanks to you that I've had a few more hours left in life. Nobody in the world can say that. But thanks to you, I've been brought back to life. But now I've got to be the one responsible. I've got to be there for you. I was never there for you. I was never told you those bedtime stories. But I can do this for you now. I can save time for you. For the fact that you will grow up to be this amazing, fantastic person. And Rose hands him the vase, which was supposed to smash with him when he dies. And so Peter walks out. The car hits him outside of the church, which kind of alters the timeline a bit still, as the Doctor comes back to life and tells Rose to go to him. and Rose goes up to Peter and cuddles him, and is there for him whilst he passes away. As everybody else, apart from our main characters, forget every single thing that's happened during these events. And there's this fantastic moment, one of the great moments of performing and directing combined, in which Rose gets up after Peter's death. She looks up and she sees the doctor looking at her, and the doctor's facial expression is either feeling incredibly sorry, or it's him thinking, right, if you cross me one more time, that's it. You're finished. But it's also with a bit of heart as well, as the story ends with the Doctor and Rose holding hands, and they go back into the TARDIS. And that's Father's Day. Easily one of my favourite stories of the Revive series. It's fantastically written, fantastically directed, and easily, in my opinion, probably one of the best acted stories in the entire show's history. It proves that Christopher Eccleston and Billie Piper are some phenomenal actors who have got great range, both in humour and in hard-hitting drama. The music by Murray Gold has a almost poetic, romanticised piano tuning to it, which really emphasises the emotional baggages of our characters. And it's just well put together. And it shows the one part long episodes is a format that can easily work in Doctor Who. Something which I was worried about when the series returned in 2005. I love being proved wrong. This story, and Dalek as well, proved me wrong. And there you go, that's Father's Day. Just go watch it. You're going to have a blast. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say a bad thing about it. But if you do not like it, please let me know, because I'm really interested in unpopular opinions. So there you go, that's Father's Day. So join me next time, where we will be going into one of the most scariest Doctor Who stories. It's considered one of the scariest Doctor Who stories of all time, as we get introduced to the small little child who wants his mummy. And also as well, the most handsome time agent you will ever meet. So join me next time for The Empty Child and the Doctor Answers. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!